Cool. What is up, you guys? Welcome to the first chirp of the year. I'm super excited. You guys actually hit me with a ton of questions today, this week. Like a lot of people sent questions and some people sent multiple questions. So, in order to try to honor you guys as best as I can and your time as I try every single week, I'm going to try to get all of these answered in 30 minutes. Okay. So, I made myself a bunch of notes. So, you're going to see me probably scanning up and down so I can make sure I don't forget anything, but I have everything answered and I'm going to be just spitfiring these questions so that I can try to get done in time. As you guys know, I'm not always the best at that. So bear with me. And if you have to leave at any point during this, don't worry. I will have that replay up by tomorrow morning so you can catch any pieces that you miss. All right. So let's dive into it. I'm gonna make my notes big here. You guys won't be able to tell though. So here we go. Let's get into some nitty gritty stuff here. And these are kind of all over the place. Like I probably could have put these in a an escalating order, but I just took them randomly. So we're gonna just hit it as I have them listed here. And this was necessarily not the order you guys submitted them in either. It's just how I decided to tackle them. So the first question was, besides reps in reserve, when do people do 5 sets of 5 reps going heavy or going heavy with partial reps like with hip thrusts? Is this a tool for more experienced lifters or does it depend on your goals? So, I'm going to answer all of the pieces of this question because this has a lot of different pieces, right? And first of all, I know some of you are like, what is reps in reserve? Because you've either just started with me or you're not to the point where you're lifting reps in reserve yet. So reps in reserve is basically when you're lifting weights, it's kind of like gauging how much effort you have left in the tank with reps. So if you're doing, let's say, some dumbbell bench press, then you're going to be counting, you're like, cool, I'm at 10, 11, and then you're like 12, and you're like, I think I could probably only do 2 more reps with good form. That's 2 reps in reserve. And also, if you like push another one and you're like, yeah, I could definitely only do 1 more, that's 1 rep in reserve, and 0 reps in reps in reserve means that you go to failure. Like you push up on that last rep, you don't get a whole rep, you can't push it all the way up, and you are done. That's 0 reps in reserve. So I usually kind of work you guys in to lifting in this way in particular because it is probably the best way to lift for the goal of something called hypertrophy, which is muscle growth. So when we are trying to increase muscle mass or like maintain muscle mass, then lifting with rep in reserve targets is one of the best things we can do because lifting to near failure or failure, and I do kind of do this dependent on experience level and age. If you are a more fit person kind of going into this program, I might start you with reps in reserve earlier and I might allow you to train to failure. If you're a little bit of a less experienced lifter, and or you're a little bit older and haven't been in great shape for a while, I probably won't have you lifting to failure because it's just too much of a tax on that like central nervous system and it takes a lot more time to recover from. And there have been some studies that kind of are like, I don't know if there's that much more benefit necessarily, especially for people who might be just getting back into it to lift to 0 reps in reserve as opposed to like 2 or 1 reps in reserve. So I kind of do this on a case by case basis. But yes, this is goal dependent for sure. So when we are lifting reps in reserve in that moderate range, which I have you guys doing like 9 to 15 reps, that's like moderate rep range, that's for muscle growth specifically. This 5 by 5 that you're talking about here, that this person is talking about here or asking about, is more for building up pure strength. It's not necessarily going to help us with muscle growth, but it's helping with muscle motor recruitment units. So it's going to make your muscles more efficient and able to fire in a little bit more of a strong way, but not necessarily going to be increasing your muscle mass. And that is just like kind of how when you learn all the things you need to learn and you take like your personal trainer certification course, this is how it works is low reps for high weight. So 5x5 heavy is going to be for strength specifically. And then moderate reps to failure or near failure is going to be for muscle growth or hypertrophy. And then if you go beyond kind of like that 15 to 25 rep range with lighter weights is for more muscular endurance. And you're working different things in the muscle in each of these different ranges. So it does absolutely have to do with what your goal is specifically. So most of you come to me and you're either under muscled or you're looking to tone up in a certain way, or you want to get more muscle mass for some sort of health goal like diabetes, cholesterol, stuff like that. That's why we specifically in this program, especially early on, are lifting for muscle growth. You are gaining strength in this area as well, as you guys all know, because most of you know you're doing progressive overload and you notice you can lift more now than when you started. So that middle rep range kind of helps us with muscle growth and strength at the same time, which is why I like it. There have been really great studies. There's a study called the Lift More study that studied women with osteoporosis specifically, and they used a 5x5 rep range or like kind of that's what they used in this study. And they found that women who did 5x5s with the big major lifts, squat, deadlift, um, press. Sorry, my mom's yelling at their dog and I don't know what's happening. Um, I'm on a family vacation right now, so I apologize if I get like distracted by what's going on. I'm gonna shut the door.
We can't hear it.
I know you can't. It's totally me that's like distracted by it. Zoom is like the best noise gate of all time. I don't know how they like just figured it out. It's crazy. Okay, so the major lifts with the 5x5s, so squats, deadlifts, presses, bench press. These are like usually what you're doing 5x5s on, and that's what that study was talking about. They use specifically five lifts, five reps, five for five times each. So like these women were working out for 30 minutes. They're doing five sets of five heavy lifts of each of these like big three lifts, and their bone mineral density increased by the end of the program. Um, so that's a thing, right? So we're also getting, especially in people who are like brand new at lifting, some sort of muscle growth and bone mineral density growth with the 5x5s as well. So both of those things probably can accomplish that, especially at the beginning. We will cap out probably on the 5x5s with muscle growth earlier than we will with the mid-range with reps in reserve. So that's why I've chosen that as kind of like the crux of at least the beginning of the program until I feel like we're appropriately muscled. And then as far as these partial reps go, this is kind of like something we can use potentially to like save range of motion and save joints a little bit, especially when we're getting super heavy. But this is really just kind of another version of training to that zero reps in reserve, right? Because you're kind of like going a little past zero in some cases where you're just like, cool, I did like for calf raises, sometimes I'll go to partials. If I'm like, I just did like 12, I can keep going, but I can't come all the way up on my toes. Then I'll keep going and I'll do like three or four partials. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's kind of just another version of training to two and maybe beyond zero reps in reserve. So I would say like it just depends, right? With partial reps, we just want to be really careful that we're not getting injured or we're not having these like really ugly partial reps that are going to cause injury. So I wouldn't say any of these techniques are necessarily for people who are more experienced, but I would be like, want to make sure that you have a good range of motion, that you know how to move well, maybe before we're doing partials, especially with free weights like dumbbells and barbells. On machines, it's a little bit less of a concern because you have a specific guided range of motion. Okay, so that was the first question. Number two, what are the best protein bars that actually taste good? So I'm just going to tell you what I like, and then I'm going to give you some kind of guidelines of what to look for a good protein bar. I like Bear Bells. Quest and David bars. Come to find out, it's really, really hard to make a protein bar that actually fits the bill of qualifying as a high protein bar and tastes good. Because when you kind of like work with protein, it kind of gets gross and I don't know, it's just like it's pretty difficult to actually make one that tastes good. So these three companies I feel like have figured it out, at least to the point where I feel like they're edible and taste pretty good. I think all three of these still kind of taste like candy bars, but they fit the profile of all of the things I'm about to tell you of what to look for when you're shopping for protein bars that are gonna not be like just glorified candy bars. So protein is the non-negotiable piece of this, right? We want it to be a protein bar, not just like a candy bar or a sugar bar. So the general rule of thumb here is I would say I'd be looking for a minimum of 20 grams of protein in this bar, period. Otherwise, it's like, what even is the point? Every single one of you needs, every time you eat, at least 25 to 40 grams of protein in every sitting that you eat at. So if it's not at least going to cover most of that, then I think it's like going to be kind of pointless for you, right? If the bar has 8 to 10 grams of protein and a ton of calories, then that's just not going to be really helping you towards that protein goal. And it's not going to be helping you to hit that calorie range either. So, number one, non-negotiable protein, 20 grams plus, period. And then the protein to calorie ratio in these bars, right? You can get away with this a little bit if you're just like, hey, I'm just going to log this thing. If it fits, it ships. That's the rule here, especially in the first part of this program when we're learning how much we need to eat. But a good ratio is going to be if you can add a zero at the end of the amount of protein, so let's say the protein bar has the minimum amount of protein, it's got 20 grams of protein, and you put a zero at the end of it, is 200 calories. I wouldn't really want that bar to have more than 200 calories, maybe plus or minus 30 calories. That would be really, really solid. Um, if it's much, much beyond like 230 calories, I would say I would be a little bit more wary of that bar. So, fat content guidelines, 5 to 8 grams of fat is great for most bars. That would be something you'd be looking for. So it's not super duper calorically dense, right? Because fat, if you guys remember, is 9 calories per gram as opposed to 4 calories per gram when you're talking about carbs or protein. It's more than twice the amount of calories per gram fat is. So you want it to be a little bit lower in these bars. That's going to help keep that calorie number down a little bit lower. So 5 to 8 grams of fat's a sweet spot. 8 to 12 is okay and might help you feel a little bit more full. And then 12 plus grams of fat is going to kind of be more of like an energy bar. It's going to have more calories, might be okay if you're having some trouble hitting your bottom range calorie goal on a regular basis. If we just need to get some more calorically dense food for you, in that case, that's okay, right? We can make all of this work on a case by case basis, and you might need a different protein bar for different things. If you're in a cut, or if like you're eating less calories than you're used to consuming, then we might need a higher protein, lower calorie bar for you. If you're opposite and you're having trouble hitting those calorie goals, then a higher fat, higher calorie, higher protein bar might do the job. So let's see here. Added sugar. I kind of think that like the less the better here. The less added sugar, the better. Up to 8 grams can be okay around workouts, but I would really try to aim for 5 grams of added sugar or less. And then fiber in a protein bar. This is going to be helpful, but I also think that like having too much protein in one bar could be kind of like playing GI roulette. It might give you some like stomach issues. So 5 to 10 grams of fiber might be kind of the sweet spot in a protein bar. More than 10 might be really upsetting to your stomach to have that much protein at once, especially if you're not used to eating higher fiber stuff. You might just get some GI upset. Additionally, kind of back to the sugar alcohols can be in these protein bars. And as long as you can tolerate sugar alcohols, these are not a big deal. We don't need to be super worried about them. But for some people, they cannot tolerate sugar alcohols. It can cause some GI upset. So just watch out for you. If you have a protein bar, you're like, I don't know why my stomach gets kind of upset after that. Just peek and see if there's sugar alcohols in it. You might be someone who can't tolerate it. So then the sugar alcohols plus high fiber might even like exacerbate that extra. Okay, so like I said, we kind of want the bar to match the job you want it to do, right? If we need it for post-workout, pre-workout, it's okay for it to have a little bit more added sugar because you're just going to use that immediately. If it's for hitting your protein goal and you're in a cut or you're having a hard time staying under your top calorie range, then we want high protein, low calorie, and then opposite high protein, high calorie if you're having a harder time hitting the bottom range of your calorie goal range. Cool. So protein first, right? We don't want a candy bar. If it's got under 20 grams of protein, then it's probably not the best. It's just gonna be kind of there, right? Not the best, not a protein bar, but just like kind of a calorie bar, which also isn't bad, but the point of it is to hit your protein goal, right? So we want that. All right, number three. Is there a good thing to drink when you want something more than just water? Absolutely. So there are some reasons why I would drink things more than just water. One, if you're low on electrolytes, especially sodium, a lot of women actually are kind of low on sodium. And know yourself, right? If you're like, hey, I have high blood pressure, I'm already on BP, like blood pressure meds, then you might not need extra sodium. But if you're like, yeah, my blood pressure normally runs low, you might need more sodium. So this is all kind of on a case by case basis. So adding some sort of electrolyte drink to your water, like little packets. I use Element. I try to again look for one with zero added sugar because you can absolutely find them unless you're kind of consuming these during or before training. Then you could get one like an electrolyte drink that has some carb actually in it or a little bit of added sugar actually in it. And that's going to help you with performance during your workouts. Especially, yeah, I mean, for me specifically, my carb goal is really, really high from my coach right now. I think she just upped it to like 400 grams on workout days, which is insane. So I'm going to have to probably implement something where I'm drinking some of these carbohydrates before or during workouts, but I'm not really making you guys do any of that stuff at this point. Like none of you are tracking all three macros. None of you are trying to like put on as much muscle as humanly possible and just like be stacked. Like that's where I'm at. That's not necessarily where you're at, but you can use some carbohydrate in your electrolytes as a tool for sure. If you're training hard and sweating, that's when I would use the electrolyte replacement. For sure, on days you're working out, I would do at least one little packet of electrolytes. Let's see here. Another thing that I like to drink is like club soda with a lime. You know, I'm a big fan when, everyone else is, we're kind of out, everyone else is drinking. I'm always having a club soda with a lime. I love bubbly water. I just like bought a whole case of like the Liquid Death grapefruit ones. My stepdad was like, "Is it grapefruit? It says grapefruit." And then I like questioned myself. It's just grapefruit bubbly soda. This is great. I drink this all the time. I have like two to three sometimes a night, especially if I'm hanging out with friends. Especially if other people are drinking, then I'm drinking these little bubbly waters, and those count as your water goal. Okay. And that's a perfect thing to be able to drink. And then hot water can actually help a little bit when you need to kind of down regulate your nervous system or if you need some comfort or if you're feeling super stressed out. In the evening, this is great. Herbal tea, um, like hot water with a lemon, bone broth, all of this kind of liquid stuff will count towards your goal, your water goal. And then I'd say like you can do hot cocoa, but I'd be careful with the sugar content, right? Especially probably at night. But like if you want to have a nice little hot cocoa and it's winter and you just worked out, then like I'm all for that. Like just log it and make sure that we're capturing the carbs in there, right? Capturing the calories in there. Decaf coffee, I would definitely like be wary of this, especially in the evening. But like I even kind of count like my first cup of coffee towards my water goal. And then anything after that, I don't decrease it. Or I don't like subtract it from my water intake, but I don't count it. But the first cup I kind of do count. So it's not really enough diuretic to make a difference unless you're just drinking coffee freaking all day long. Let's see here. Diet soda. I'm a big fan of this. It's totally allowed. I don't want any of you to have any moral panic about diet sodas. If there's zero sugar, I'm a-okay with this. It helps adherence. It can kind of give you some satiety, make you feel like satisfied, and it can replace higher calorie drinks and absolutely be a useful, not even a bridge, but like something that you can rely on if you want to. Especially though, if you're drinking full sugar sodas, this can be a perfect bridge to wean yourself off. Things I'd be careful about: health drinks with sneaky carbs that you don't know about, especially when you're like having a really sedentary day. Sweetened coffees, anything with a lot of added sugar, I would be really careful about unless you're doing it surrounding exercise or you know you have very specific goals with training. And then fruit juice can contain just a ton of sugar, and just like our bodies cannot handle that much liquid sugar coming in at once, especially if we're like pre-diabetic, diabetic, if we're not moving consistently throughout the day or we're not training, using it around a training window. All right, that's it. Next, what are the best workout accessories to have at home? A few must-haves. Hey, I think like if you're trying to work out at home, if you have a little incline bench and if you have dumbbells from like 5 probably to 30 pounds, depending on how far along in this process you are. So dumbbells from like 5 to 30 pounds, an incline bench, long bands that are like the longer stretchy bands, and then the smaller stretchy bands. If you have that stuff, then we can make a really, really good start. Another thing, beyond that, I would add is you are probably going to outgrow those 30-pound dumbbells at some point, especially with leg day. So, any dumbbells like from 35 to probably 50 would be an add-on when you're ready. And then if you're like really froggy about it, then a barbell is great. We can do a lot more things with that too, or at least give you some variety with plates up to probably like at least 100 pounds of plates to start, if not up to 150 is probably going to get most of you what you need. And then again, though, the barbell with plates would be the last add-on I would do. And then if you can do other fancy things, great. But you can get pretty far with a home setup with just that stuff. Let's see here. Can you talk a little bit about hormones? This is the next question, and how they affect nutrition, exercise, energy. I have been on some form of birth control for basically forever, except for when I was having kids or breastfeeding, and I plan on getting my IUD out soon. Not sure what, if any, changes to expect when this happens, when I get this IUD out. Well, you're definitely gonna you're definitely gonna probably feel the difference if you're paying attention, and you're just gonna have to get used to this normal natural rhythm that your body is going to start wanting to have, but it's gonna take your body a little while to figure out that new normal natural rhythm. So the first like 3 months, and I know the person who asked me this is a PA too, that first 3 months is you're gonna be like figuring it out. Your body's gonna be figuring it out and getting stabilized. And then after that, you're gonna start kind of hopefully, fingers crossed, everybody's different when they come off of this stuff, figure out this new rhythm of normal. Okay. So when you've been on hormonal birth control for a really long time, um, you have been buffering some of this hormonal response. It smooths out these normal hormonal kind of signals that your body has, and it can make you feel more stable, which is why we use it, and I think sometimes overuse it with symptoms in medicine. But it can also mean that you haven't been hearing your body's full feedback, like I was saying. So when you come off of that IUD, what you're really doing is removing that kind of hormonal buffer, and your endocrine system is going to start communicating with your body more clearly again. So it's like nothing's wrong with you when this happens. It just means the signal is getting louder because it's not being suppressed anymore. And like, yeah, I said, this new rhythm is going to come on board and you're going to have to get used to it. Energy may no longer feel identical every single day because you're going to have all of the phases of your cycle again. Appetite may vary across the month. Stress may be felt a little bit more quickly than before. And like, especially if sleep and nutrition are off, and training fatigue might become more noticeable at certain phases. I'm not going to get into kind of all of the nitty-gritty here for everyone. This might be a good thing for me to do a full class on at some point, and maybe I will in the next few weeks, just because it can be a little bit more complicated without some visuals. But estrogen and cortisol. So estrogen is kind of like that main female hormone that we have, and cortisol is that stress hormone that we all have. These two things are deeply connected. So when estrogen fluctuates naturally, when you're not on some kind of birth control, your tolerance for undereating, undersleeping, and overtraining is going to drop more. Okay. So the body is going to speak to you sooner. And I would recommend, like, when you kind of come off of this, you're going to need to observe yourself. And I would recommend, like, not overreacting, just be like, hey, this is probably because I'm not suppressing these signals anymore. You don't need to change everything the month that you come off birth control. I would just recommend doing the same thing and just paying attention to how is my body responding to this. And every woman is like a lot different during these different phases of their cycles. There are some baseline generic statements you can make about each one of them. But like for me specifically, if I train at high intensity on the day I am ovulating, it's like nuts. Like I get the worst piercing stomach pain I've ever had in my life, and I'm just like cramping in a ball on the floor. And it took me a really long time to figure out that that was correlated. So every woman's different. I haven't really heard of anyone else having that experience, but I've heard of people like saying, I can't train as hard in my luteal phase or whatever. Like I don't experience any differences that I can tell other than that one day. So every woman's going to be very different here. What else do I want to say about this? I said that already. So the most supportive things that you can do are the things you're doing already, okay? Is eat enough, especially protein, and keep the carbohydrates higher. Is what I would say. Keep the carbs higher. This person who asked the question will love that. Keep the carbs higher, especially around activity. Lift weights, we're doing all this stuff already, right? Respect sleep, respect recovery, all the things that you're learning right now are going to really help you out on the transition. And maybe you won't even notice it, to be honest, because you're already doing these things. And this person's already very consistent at doing these things and has been working with me for quite some time. Okay, that's pretty much what I'm going to cover on that question because of time. And I have one more to cover, and then I'll try to do a more deep dive into like hormones and how it affects our bodies in the next few weeks. So, last question. So, this person says, I've been consistent for a couple of months and I'm not seeing big visual changes yet. Putting my side by side pictures up, I don't see any difference. I do notice that I am feeling stronger, but I'm just like not seeing this transformation actually starting to happen. Okay, so first of all, if you've been consistent for a couple of months and you're not seeing big visual changes yet, that does not mean that something's wrong or this process is not working, right? I think that in the full version of this question, the person even like said, "Hey, I know that muscle weighs more than fat, et cetera, et cetera." But like I was hoping that I would notice a more visible difference in my body at this point. So this doesn't mean that the process isn't working, right? It means that your body is doing the work that it needs to do in the order that it knows it needs to do it in. And this actually is crazy, but it is different for everyone, right? Because everybody's kind of, I don't want to say it like this, but like in for lack of better terms, everybody's kind of broken in a different way. So when our bodies go to work and they start to correct this stuff, it's not always going to happen in the same order for every single person. That's why it's like insane, even when I work with you guys, some of you will drop 10 to 15 pounds in like the first 8 weeks. That is not the typical response I get from most women, though. Some of you start building muscle very, very quickly, and it's replacing that fat. So you'll lose some weight right at the very beginning. Like we'll get a nice little 4 to 5 pound drop, but then we kind of just hang out there as your body's kind of recomposing. It's like you're getting more muscle, and while you're getting more muscle, you are losing fat, but um, that muscle is more dense, right? It's going to weigh a lot more. And then where you lose your fat is also your body's choice. So, and I'm going to just say this person in particular, I did look at your side by sides from when we started in October versus the last ones that you took in December. And you're a person who is actually losing a lot of fat in the middle right now. So your arms and legs don't look more toned yet because your body is preferentially, it looks like to me, visibly, and I can tell when I look at these things, losing fat from the middle section, which I think is freaking awesome because usually people do kind of lose this peripheral fat first. But I can definitely notice when I look at your photos, especially the front and side views, that you're losing weight in the middle. And I can see it like almost starkly. And I know we're always way, way, way harder on ourselves, right? And we have this kind of idea of what we wanted to see in X amount of months, especially if you had a timeline for something that you're like, I want to look great for this thing. It can be hard. And most people expect visible results at 8 to 12 weeks. And some people do get them. But what often actually happens, especially with women who train seriously, which this person I know for sure does, is the structural transformation is taking place first, which I actually would prefer, especially in somebody who's athletic and very active. I want this muscle to come on board, and we're seeing those strength gains, right? So this is two very different timelines that you guys might have depending on what your body needs in the moment. Right now, your body is prioritizing getting stronger, improving how muscle fires and coordinates, replenishing glycogen inside the muscle when you're recovering from that hard training and all of the movement that you're doing outside of your training and rebuilding muscle tissue quality. That's a huge one, especially if you're above 55 or 60. That's happening. And it's going to be this turnover that's not necessarily going to be visible, but is going to be felt. It's going to be a felt sense, and it's going to decrease your risk of chronic disease across the board as you age and lowering the cost of stress and recovery. This is making you more resilient. So this is why strength is jumping early, and this consistency that you're working towards, you're extremely consistent, you're doing really, really good. We just might need to kind of gauge this progress off of the other biometrics at the very beginning here instead of necessarily um, the expectation of what you thought maybe you are hoped to look like at this point in time. Again, it's not because nothing's happening. This is early recomposition and it's subtle and it's spread out. But like, I hear you. I hear you because it's really like you want to feel good, you want to look good. And that's part of the reason why all of you are doing this too. But like, we want capacity as well. And like the biggest thing I'm working with you guys towards is to build that capacity for the long run. So you're building a stronger frame, a more resilient metabolism, tissue that protects your joints, bones, and energy long term. And this phase doesn't always come first for every single person. But if you don't have a ton of excess fat to lose right off the bat, then usually this phase starts before your body's going to actually drop fat. Then we have all of the other kind of factors where it's like stress, sleep. If these things aren't dialed in as well, or if we don't have you eating enough for your activity level as well, then we could have stress unnecessarily elevated. So that's why I might be messing with some of your food intake in the next few weeks. So if I ever increase your food, that's probably why. It's because I'm like, okay, we're too low, we're stressing the body out. We need to recover and bring calories up for a little while. Okay, so I think that's all I have to say about this. We have a couple things happening right now. My computer's about to die. Betty joined us while we were doing that whole thing. Welcome, Betty. Happy birthday to you yesterday. It's my mom's birthday today. So we're about to go out to dinner, and I am going to stop this. I usually would have questions right now, but my computer's about to die, and I want to make sure that the Zoom downloads before um, or starts downloading before my freaking thing dies. Okay, Betty has this question though. Does Diet Coke count towards water as well, as long as it's so I would say the first Diet Coke that you have, I would count it towards your water intake. If you have more than one, then I'm not going to count it because I want, and this is me, I'm talking to myself because I'm bad about this. Unlimited bubbly waters, count those towards your water intake. If you have more than one Diet Coke, only count the first one. If you have more than one cup of coffee, only count the first one. Just so that we're trying to preferentially kind of drink actual water during the day as well. I want that. Okay, cool, guys. I'm going to end this so I can get this replay up to you guys by tomorrow morning. I hope you have the best night, and I will catch you on the flip side. Don't forget your check-ins tomorrow. Bye.